In this video, you will learn how to add and subtract with fractions and decimals. Now, when you add and subtract fractions, you need to make sure that there is a common denominator. So if there is a common denominator, when you add something like 4 over 7 plus 2 over 7, what you do is you simply add or subtract the numerators. So here, the bottom or the denominator is the same with a 7, so I can add the tops or the numerator together to get 4 plus 2 on the top and then 7 on the bottom. So my solution is 6 over 7. With subtraction, same thing. We have a common denominator, which means the bottom is the same number. So I can subtract the tops. 4 minus 2 would give me 2 for the numerator. So my solution is 2 over 7. Here we have a negative 4 over 7 plus 2 over 7. Once again, the denominator is the same, so I can add the numerators. So for the top, I have negative 4 plus 2, and the bottom would stay at 7. So my solution is negative 4 plus 2, which is negative 2 over 7. Now if there is a different denominator, so the bottoms are different, what you need to do is find a common denominator. So to do that, I find the least common multiple of the denominators. So looking at the 9 and the 15, those numbers need to be the same. So to find the least common multiple of those numbers, I can factor those down. So the 9 would be 3 times 3. 15 is 3 times 5. So for the least common multiple, I see what factors I've represented. So I see 3's and I see 5's. And I take the one of the most of each of these. So looking at the 3's, the 9 has more 3's with 2 of them. So I take 2 3's. And the 5's, this 15 has the most with 1 of them. So I take 1 5. And then I multiply those together. So I have 3 times 3 times 5, which is 45. So my denominator is 45. So I need to convert 2 over 9 into something over 45. So to do that, I see that 9 times 5 is 45. So I do the same thing to the top. 2 times 5 would give me 10. So 2 over 9 is the same thing as 10 over 45. Looking at the 4 over 15. So 4 over 15 is the same as what over 45? Well, looking at the bottoms, 15 times 3 gives me 45. So 4 times 3 would give me 12 for the top. So I converted 2 over 9 and 4 over 15 to 10 over 45 and 12 over 45. And then I subtract those two values. So the denominators are now the same. So the tops I can subtract 10 minus 12. So for the numerator, that gives me negative 2, and the denominator is 45. So my solution is negative 2 over 45. Here's another example with addition. 5 over 8 plus 1 over 6. So the denominators are different, so I need to make them the same by finding the least common multiple. So the least common multiple of 8 and 6 I can find by factoring down 8 as a product of 2 times 2 times 2, and 6 as a product of 2 times 3. I see that there are 2's and 3's, and I see how many of each do I take. So looking at the 2's, the 8 has more of them with 3. So I take 3 2's. And then the 3's, the 6 has the most with 1, so I take 1 3. And then I multiply those together. So 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 gives me 24 for the least common multiple. So then I need to convert 5 over 8 and 1 over 6 into something over 24. So 5 over 8 equals something over 24. So I can convert this by seeing that 8 times 3 gives me 24. So 5 times 3 would give me 15. So 5 over 8 is 15 over 24. And then 1 over 6 I can write as something over 24. So to do that, I look at the 6, and I see that 6 times 4 is 24. So then 1 times 4 on the top would give me 4. So 1 over 6 can be written as 4 over 24. So now I'm adding 15 over 24 plus 4 over 24. So I add the numerators together, 15 plus 4, which would give me 19 over 24. Now with mixed numbers, such as 2 and 1/5 plus 3 and 5/6, I can do this in two different ways. So one way is I can convert each of these numbers into an improper fraction and then add them together. Or I can try to add these together by looking at the 2 and the 3, so the number component, adding those together, and then adding the fraction component together separately. So what we're going to do with the second way here, where I convert the 1/5 and the 5/6 into something with a common denominator. So I need to find the least common multiple of 5 and 6. So I have 5 does not break down any further. That is just 5. 6 can break down as 2 times 3. So to find the least common multiple, I see that there are 2s, 3s, and 5s, and I take the one with the most of each. Well, there's only one of each, so that 1 is the most that I'm taking of each. So the least common multiple, you put the 2, 3, and 5 together to get 30. So 1 over 5 I can write as something over 30. So I see that 5 times 6 is 30. So 1 times 6 would give me 6 for the numerator. And then looking at the other fraction, the 5 over 6, I convert that to something as over 30. So 6 times 5 is 30. So for the top, 5 times 5 would be 25. So I have 6 over 30 and 25 over 30. So that is the fraction component of these mixed numbers. So I can rewrite this as 2 and 6 over 30 plus 3 and 25 over 30. So when I add them together, I can add the number parts together. So the 2 and 3 would give me 5. And then the 6 over 30 plus 25 over 30 would give me 31 over 30. So now from here, just one thing to take into account is that 31 over 30 is improper. That is bigger than 1. So 31 over 30, I can think of that as 30 over 30 plus another 1 over 30. And this 30 over 30 is 1. So what I have here is actually 5 and then 1 and then 1 over 30. So 5 plus 1 is 6. So what I have is going to be 6 and 1 over 30. The other way I could have done this is I could have converted each of these numbers into an improper fraction. So the 2 and 1/5 and 3 and 5/6 I could convert. And at times that will be easier than trying it this way, and maybe particularly with subtraction. So I'll walk you through that here quick as well. So if you do 2 and 1/5 plus 3 and 5/6 by converting to an improper fraction, for the first fraction you'd have 2 times 5 plus 1. That would give me 11 over 5. And then plus 3 times 6 plus 5. That gives me 23. And then put that over 6. And then you convert this to a common denominator of something over 30. So the first fraction, 5 times 6 is 30. So 11 times 6 would give me 66. Second fraction, 6 times 5 is 30. And then 23 times 5 would give me 15, carry the 1, be 115. So then add the tops together. 66 plus 115 would give me 181 over 30. I can divide this, 181 over 30, and I'm going to find that would give me 6, because 6 times 30 is 180. Then there's a remainder of 1 to get from 180 to 181. So the remainder is 1, and put that over 30. So my answer here would still be 6 and 1 over 30. So either way would give you the correct answer. It just depends on which method you prefer. Now lastly, we need to know how to add and subtract with decimals. So for example, 34.251 plus 6.78. Whenever you add or subtract decimals, make sure that your decimal point is lined up. Okay? And then also you may need to add zeros if necessary to make sure that the number of digits past the decimal are the same. So like this first number, there is a 0.251, which is 3 numbers past the decimal. The second number, we have 0.78, which is only 2 numbers past the decimal. I need to add a 0 here, which does not change the value, but it makes this so that all the numbers will line up. So when I add this first column, 1 plus 0, to get 1. The second column, 5 plus 8, gives me 13, so I take 3, and carry the 1. So now I add 1 plus 2 plus 7, which is 10, carry the 1. 1 plus 4 is 5, plus 6 is 11, carry the 1, and that's going to be 4. So I have 41.031, and notice the decimal point is still lined up with the other two. So my solution would be 41.031. For subtraction, we have 34.25 minus 6.78. So here everything is lined up already. The decimal point is in a row right here. And then notice we also do have the same number of digits past the decimal point. So that's good as well. So I can begin subtracting. So 5 minus 8 does not work. So I need to borrow from the 2. So I borrow from the 2. It's going to give me a 1 up here. And then I have a 1 with the 15, with the 5. So this becomes 15. 15 minus 8 is 7. So now I have 1 minus 7 here, which does not work. So I need to borrow from the 4, which gives me 3 now, and then this becomes an 11. So 11 minus 7 is 4. And then the decimal point is in a row right here. And then 3 minus 6 does not work, so I need to borrow from this 3. So that becomes a 2. This becomes a 13. 13 minus 6 is 7. And then we have 2 up here. 2 minus, and then there's a 0 or nothing there. So 2 minus 0 will just be 2. So that is 27.47. Last one. Let's say we had 12 minus 5.6. So here we need to line up everything on our own. When we get this set up, we would have a decimal point right here to line up with the 5.6. So we have the number, the whole number part on the left side, the decimals line up. And then with the 12, we need to add a 0 so that there is the same number of digits past the decimal point as 5.6. So now I can begin subtracting. So 0 minus 6 does not work. So I need to borrow from the 2. That becomes a 1, and this becomes 10. 10 minus 6 is 4. And then now we have 1 minus 5, which does not work. So I need to borrow from this 1. That becomes a 0, and this becomes an 11. 11 minus 5 is 6. So I have 6.4 as my solution. And notice the decimal, once again, is lined up. All right, and that concludes our lesson for today. We will see you next time.